One word: zombie dinosaurs. Chago, put in a hyphen so I don't look stupid. Okay, now it's one word, I don't have to look like an idiot. There are many threats to wide-scale survival that hail back from the prehistoric era. Giant and/or predatory dinosaurs in the land, sea, and air, apocalyptic meteors wiping out life and ushering a new age, etc., etc. But it's not too often we consider infections or diseases, possibly otherworldly in nature, stemming from the land before time. Running rampant through an environment and its inhabitants unopposed without any hope of a cure, there is true nightmare fuel in what we cover today. What kind of damage would a disease from the dawn of man do? Let's find out. Today, we are discussing Why You Wouldn't Survive, Primal's Plague of Madness. Coming from origins unknown, we witness the after effects of the Madness Plague's first unseen outbreak when a lone Parasaurolophus frantically wanders into a herd of Argentinasauruses. The duck-billed hadrosaur is a blatant, sickly biohazard in every regard. Flesh bubbling up like it's melting off the bone, exposing its vertebrae, skin turning bright green, eyes washed over in a bright red with yellow veins wriggling out, green bile emanating from its mouth. Totally unrecognizable from its healthy persona. It is normally a passive herbivore. However, this new monstrosity wanders around as if it were in a blind rage, spurred by agonizing, unending pain. Not paying any mind to the behaviors of such a small creature relative to its own size, the lizard giraffe continues eating from atop the tree. It eventually bites the Argentinasauruses. Okay, that's a lot to say. I'm just going to shorten this specific dinosaur to the Argent's ankle as it flings the much smaller dinosaur at a high speed, snapping its spine against a tree. The bipedal reptile falls to the ground, drawing its last breath. Upon death, the pupil inverse of red and yellow swallowing its eyes flushes away to a normal pupil surrounded in red. Blood pours out from its mouth, almost as if whatever was controlling the body had relinquished its grip, leaving behind the disgusting remains of the corpse it once ravaged. Not long after receiving its bite wound, did the Argent immediately start to display symptoms, becoming severely dehydrated on the spot and seeking out the nearest source of water. But before that, did its flesh mimic that of the Parasaurolophus. The pale green glow of the skin, rapid decaying of the flesh as it sags down heavily, its eyes watering up and mucus profusely drizzling from its nose. No amount of water can quench the beast's thirst. Upon water entering the body rejects it as if it were dealing with the first symptoms of rabies. The Argent proceeds to violently vomit gallons and gallons of blood into the pond as others of his kind watch on. His insides now most likely liquefied, the Argent's final points of lucidity are wiped out once its eyes were consumed by the same pupilless red eyes with jolted yellow veins. The Argent was now fully infected. Losing all sense of self, it no longer feels pain or a sense of self-preservation. The internal organs have all shut down, being reduced to a bloody paste, possibly relying on only the central nervous system to operate, considering the smaller dino from earlier died only when its spine was broken. Teeth sharpening, bones becoming exposed in order to rip a victim's flesh, its tail reddening while emaciated and thin to hellaciously whip prey, its strength heightened due to its lack of inhibition, making it more tenacious, as nothing will slow its assault once it's on its rampage. Proceeding to go fully berserk, it blindly attacks its former herd with no hesitancy and complete carnage. Whether intentional or not, it proceeds to trample every nest of eggs before it, leaving none of the preborn alive. The others in the flock attempt to fend off this ravager, but the first of these dinosaurs would have their throat torn open as if by a ravenous carnivore. The infected Argent's whole body acting as a weapon, working in every given direction as it proceeds to headbutt a nearby dinosaur while using its now whip-like tail to slash the flesh off another Argentinosaur's face. Its claws more sharpened as it digs its talons into others' torsos, biting the necks of others more and more, even having enough force in its legs to kick the ribcage out of a dinosaur's body in one single motion. A debilitated dinosaur nearby had its innards ripped out by the Argent as it runs up to a fleeing dinosaur just to tackle it into the spikes of a nearby tree. Pretty damn metal, but in the span of only a few minutes from becoming fully infected, did it wipe out an entire herd of giant dinosaurs, leaving no survivors. This behavior is unlike any zombies or infected I have covered. Usually the main prerogative of an infection is to multiply and reproduce. However, this is the polar opposite. The infected here show no sign of attempting to spread the virus. Instead, it seeks to only kill. Of course, if one were to have somehow gotten away from the attack after getting bitten, they could have contracted the illness. But the virus does not reanimate the dead, mind you. It needs a living host, leading to confusion as to what this infection is. It may be related to rabies or necrotizing fasciitis, aka the flesh-eating disease, possibly being the origin forms of both of these viruses that mutated away from each other millions of years ago, like a more extreme version of 28 Days Later's Rage virus. Yet, at least with Rage, the time for infection would cause someone to turn before they were killed, well, for the most part. But with the Plague of Madness, the infection rate cannot keep up with the murder rate. This could be a variant of a supposed real-life disease that existed way back during the late Cretaceous period. The skeletal remains of a titanosaur found in Brazil in 2020 showed signs of osteomyelitis, a bone infection in today's era that can easily be treated, but may be another ancient variant spurred by parasites with much more deadlier and debilitative results. But I don't see a bone disease being close to this though. It could also be based on the parasitic fungi known as Arianopsis lampridarum. Chago, just put the word on screen. There's no way I can pronounce that. A fungus capable of hijacking an insect's nervous system in order to transport itself to better areas and spread its spores, all while the body literally rots. Maybe it's a fungi harboring a virus that has haphazardly set its goals of needing to kill over the needs to reproduce. It could be like The Last of Us's cordyceps, using the biomass of dead organisms to spread spores into the air, hence why we only see 2 living infected and why the living infected kill so frequently. It could also explain why no predators or even flies came to the corpses of the Argentinasauruses. The corpses of the Argent's victims emanate a foul stench that even caused an alpha predator T-Rex to shriek in disgust before avoiding the corpses completely, lending to the idea that whatever this infection is, it lies dormant in the dead, and all life is going to avoid it whenever possible. Upon inspecting the massacre of the Argentinosaurus herd, Caveman Spear and his companion Fang both wonder what happened there. Nothing in nature outright slaughters such large creatures without sticking around to eat the bodies, especially with such brutal results. While gawking at this ghastly sight, does the Argent begin to rise up from behind them, apparently awakening from a dormant state. Earlier, after its killing spree, did the infected ancient beast display signs of fatigue, breathing heavily, showing it can wear down. It could be that this only happens when an infected either has killed and or infected everything in sight, or simply cannot detect any living organisms nearby. It will simply hibernate to conserve energy since the infection has taken such a horrific toll on the body inside and out. During its pursuit of Fang and Spear, did it run straight off a cliff and plummet to the earth below, seemingly dying from the fall. Fang and Spear walked past it the next morning, only for it to reawaken and continue its relentless chase. Slamming into walls without recoil, it gets itself stuck in the tight corridor of a ravine, banging its head insatiably around trying to wedge its body out, and it eventually slips out by shredding its very flesh, exposing its ribcage and hollowed out insides, depicting how, no matter the expense at the host's body, the Plague of Madness will perpetually hound its victims Nothing is required of the body to continue functioning except maybe the bones. Proceeding to chase the duo into an active lava field, the towering sauropod was pelted with pillars of high-velocity molten lava straight to its jugular. Largely unfazed, it eventually fell through the thin earth crust due to its massive weight and sunk into the boiling magma. However, the plague's tenacity would give its hardened outer shell even more durability as the dinosaur emerged from the liquid, burning upwards of 2200 degrees Fahrenheit, turning its flesh red and heated, being able to swim through the lava to launch one more surprise attack before the rotting shell of the animal ultimately burnt away, leaving nothing but ash and supposedly eradicating the plague once and for all, meaning it can take total eradication of the body before it officially dies or the plague releases control. Speer had definitively noted in the brief time on the dinosaur's back that its innards were basically non-existent. Only a skeletal frame managed to survive at that point. Nothing but the spine is apparently needed to keep the host body from being functional, with the previous dinosaur's spine being shattered in one fell swoop and dying. Extremely contagious, fast symptom rate, a destructive degeneration, and violent and brutal temperament. This dinosaur 28 days later black magic-like infection could have easily done more if given more time with the episode or breaking out of the diverse episodic format of Primal. We only ever saw it in 2 dinosaurs, so it could have done a lot more damage if it went beyond them. But that brings us to the Why You Wouldn't Survive. I've been talking about the synopsis and its origins, but how would we not survive? It's way back in the past. Well, what if the virus somehow went dormant and came to us, say, 128 million years later? Noting how the corpses of the Argent's victims went untouched, it is possible that their skeletal remains could harbor the infection, even through every diverse era of our planet. While not plausible for actual diseases, one of fantastical properties like the Plague of Madness could very well do so. Maybe excavated by a paleontological dig, much like the devil worms that were unearthed in Back 4 Blood, either being unleashed when procured for study or museums, or when the eventuality of dinosaur cloning accidentally brings this plague back, but spliced with whatever Jurassic Park filler was needed to clone the dinosaurs, possibly making the plague even more virulent and prone to spreading its infection rather than killing so quickly. Maybe even making the full infection time with notable symptoms take longer so it could spread faster off the human radar. This would be unlike anything we have ever faced in our reality. The plague would find avenues to extend its maddening reach far and wide. The Argent, in its first moments of infection, immediately went to an open body of water to quench its thirst, only being able to swallow a bit before profusely vomiting blood into the shared drinking source, meaning food and water could intentionally be infected by the rabies-like victims. They are just trying to get some food and water, and now they're going to infect open sources. The plague usurping into things we eat and drink. Ravenous plague walkers of people suddenly deteriorating rapidly and attacking everyone around them, gouging, slashing, biting, their bodies having exposed bone-like sharpened claws to rip and tear, bodily fluids flung everywhere in their attack, not being too far from the imagination that it could be just like the rage virus, that any drop of blood, saliva, mucus, or more entering the body could mean rapid infection to healthy hosts. Disabling these infected would prove to be extremely difficult since basically all of their internal organs would be amalgamated and hollowed out. The plague infected would become even more resilient than the generic zombie, as even shots to the head might not even wipe these infected out. It would require either decapitation, breaking the spine, or total incineration of the body before you would be able to even take one of them out. Hell, even lighting them on fire might not do anything to slow them down, as evidenced by the Argent continuing to attack Spear and Fang even after being fully submerged in active lava. Blowing them up, shooting them to pieces, who knows the extent that the infected bodies can withstand damage, but they can resist just about anything easily if the spine is intact. Animals of every kind would be susceptible to the infection, leaving anything to be a veritable immortal killer. Even insects could attack and bite you, administering the plague easily without you being able to do much to stop it, kind of like spreading like the West Nile virus. If dinosaurs were cloned, then all shapes and varieties could become denizens of the seemingly undead. As to how long the infected can last in their dilapidated state is unknown. It could be that they will die within a few days without proper functioning organs or sustenance, but the possibility that this virus is otherworldly and magical in nature could mean that all infected bodies will function until they are either destroyed or even possibly lasting until they are nothing but bones. It is also plausible that the open air could become infected with plague spores if it is indeed a fungal growth, leaving it impossible to breathe over time in highly populated areas without proper breathing equipment. If you do breathe in the spores, you will quickly turn into one of the green menace. The infection would spread like wildfire regardless, due to its virulency and how violent and fast the infected suddenly become with their bodies, leaving everything behind them they draw near as biohazards. All natural life will attempt to steer clear of this medical abnormality, but few would be able to flee from it forever. Spear and Fang never attempted to fight it, knowing immediately what one bite or close interaction would mean for their own survival. Yes, they were able to survive an encounter with the Argent, with nothing but quick reflexes and lucky placement of environments. But they only ever went face to face with one of these infected behemoths. If an outbreak of these were to occur in dozens, hundreds, or even thousands, the same might not have been said for their fates. In the modern world, if it were come to pass, I'd say it could spread even more easily than it did in Primal. There is a lot more living creatures roaming about and in more condensed areas. Slaughter would be a mainstay across our planet, or at least in the areas that it breaks out in high population density locations. You would have to take out people around you with murdering proficiency, being able to remove someone's head, break their spine in an instant, or debilitating them enough to where you can burn them on the spot. This would be unlike taking out any other living thing on the planet before it. Hollowed out shells of green, glowing, disgusting individuals with swallowed up eyes, butchering everything, and their infection getting so out of hand in every single animal or organism nearby, spreading exponentially as the world descends into a hellish pandemic. Sure, some may survive once we are able to get to safe havens, but in the initial chaos and everything that follows, we would have to fight back with weapons in hand, both civilian and militarized, and find food and water that is not quickly infected. But in the end, a wide portion of the population would fall either by the infected's hands or the infected supplies of air, water, food, and everything before order could be restored. More than likely, you will just be another stark raving candidate turned green with maddening eyes, fluids out of every orifice of your body, ready to attack anything that draws breath. And you will be another denizen of the plague of madness. That's it for this time capsule of a bio-viral fungal magical look at Genndy Tartakovsky's Primal universe. What do you think? Did I over-dramatize this idea? Would it be easy to quell this pandemic? What do you think the plague of madness's origins stem from? How far do you think it could go? Do you really think you could survive? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you to the Primal Wiki for aiding me in writing the script. I couldn't have done it without it. And I could not have done it without Chago, aka QuickFlix, my editor, for putting this video together. Check him out for awesome video and show recaps. Special thanks to you for watching, and if you could spare some change, feel free to throw $1 my way over on Patreon or a YouTube channel membership, and you can see these videos up to a week early and have your name on this list here for future videos. Until next time, I'm Zach S, aka WildSuch Gaming. Have a happy new year, stay happy, stay healthy, and never forget to stay wow.